Okay, this is something a bit different. I'm on my way to go and see The Suicide Squad. This is the first movie I've seen like in a year in an actual cinema. So I'm looking forward to it. I've heard good things about it. I think what I'll do is right after I'll get back in the car and do like my first impressions, and then I'll do like a more spoiler filled review once I get back home after. Yeah, this wasn't released on streaming, so I couldn't do like a review reaction like I did for Black Widow. So maybe I'll start doing a few more reviews now that there's movies coming out in cinemas that I can't get on streaming. Okay, so I just finished watching it, so I'll just give some first impressions and then I'll do a more kind of spoiler filled proper review once I get home and can set up my camera and everything. So some standouts were definitely Polka Dot Man, King Shark, the Rat Catcher Girl, Peacemaker, Rick Flag, and Bloodsport were all great. What an improvement over the first Suicide Squad movie. You know, it's kind of similar to the first one in the sense that they used a lot of music, but in the first one it was obvious that they hadn't planned for the music to be in the scenes where they were and they just kind of spliced it all together. But this, because the music was all planned out, it all worked really well. All of the action was great. There was a lot of gore, which was kind of cool, but it didn't feel kind of like over the top or gratuitous. Some of the conflict and moral conflict towards the end was actually really good. There's this one fight scene that it kind of takes place in the reflection of Peacemaker's helmet, and it's so cool. I don't want to give too much away or say too much more, so I'll do the rest when I get home.
Okay, so the Suicide Squad. I think I'll stay relatively spoiler free for a bit, and then I'll put a time code in the description of when I start with spoilers. I mean, this was a huge step up from the original. You know, getting James Gunn on board was a great decision. This is definitely his type of movie. You know, he likes to be wacky and out there and do a lot of interesting stylistic things. It's split up into chapters kind of, and the chapter titles are kind of like, I don't know if diegetic is the word. I know they use that with music. Maybe that's the right word as well to describe these. So like the titles are kind of in the environment. Some of them were a bit hard to read at times, but it was really cool. I really liked the intro because there's a lot of stuff you need to kind of sum up the premise really quickly for the people that don't know, but then you don't want to keep that overextended for too long for the people that know the premise and have seen the first one. So they did a really good job of just like really snappily introducing the premise, saying, you know, bomb in the neck, if you do it you explode, blah blah blah. But they did it really well. That kind of first scene was really good. I do think it suffered a bit from jumping around from plot point to plot point a bit too much at times, but it was pretty good. I really liked Amanda Waller here, and this time it wasn't like just her. She had like a team of people, and all of her team of people were really cool. You think they'd just be side characters, but some of them do have some good characterization and good lines and moments. I've already mentioned my kind of standout characters, but there's some great, more emotional moments here as well. It's not just all crazy. It has some heart, just like you'd expect from a James Gunn movie. I do think that Bloodsport does play kind of like the same role as Deadshot, is almost, you know, the same powers and almost even the same kind of story. But I think it works better in this context. And I really liked how Bloodsport, Rick Flag, and Peacemaker all played off of each other. They had really good interactions and dynamics. And even though they all kind of have similar skills and power sets, it didn't feel like, oh, they're just three guys with guns. You know, they didn't just use guns, which was really good. They all had a kind of unique weapons that they used. The music here was all really good, much more fitting than the first movie because it can go, you know, they can do it and plan for it to be in the movie when it is. It wasn't just kind of thrown in last minute like with the original movie. And it kind of, towards the end of the movie, it slows down with how much licensed music there is. and it focuses much more on the score, and the score is really good, especially for like the final fight. I think the final fight was really, really good. I loved everything there. I didn't feel like I was too kind of invested in the actual mission, but it was how the characters interact and how they interplay off of each other that kind of carries the movie. I know a lot of people have been giving this really high praise and said like it's the best DCEU film. I don't know if that's really the case. For me, I think Wonder Woman is still their best movie, but I think this had a lot better action and was a lot more emotionally impactful and had a lot more like emotional moments than all of the other DCU films. I still haven't seen the Snyder Cut or Shazam yet, so I don't know about those two. But of course, this was a much lighter tone than a lot of the other movies in the DCEU, and this is definitely one of the best I've seen so far. I think it's almost like too different from Wonder Woman to properly compare them, you know? They're almost like two different types of movies. Wonder Woman is a lot more serious. You know, they're both superhero movies, but it's like a serious war film almost, and this is like a goofy spy mission kind of thing, you know what I mean? They're like completely different, so there's not really much point in comparing them. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't think I'll do scores or things for reviews because that just kind of muddies things out. It's, you know, you can get my opinion from what I say. So I think from now I'll go into spoilers now, okay? Yeah, so I really love the intro with Savant, how it was just recapping everything we know about the neck implants, and then they're going on their first mission. It just happened really snappily and really quickly. And then we had a few funny character interactions, and then when they landed on that beach and like almost all of them died, I thought that was really great. You know, we expected there to be like a high body count here, and there was like at the end there was like 4 of them that survived, and then 5 if you count Weasel, and then 6 if you do Peacemaker because he was in the end credit scene. I was actually the only one in the cinema to stay for the end credit scene. I was just sitting there by myself. I don't know if it was worth it exactly because we already knew that Peacemaker was getting a TV show, and this was just kind of set up for that, really. I do think there were a few plot points and subplots that were kind of unnecessary. You know, the whole Harley getting kidnapped thing, it set up some of the world building for the island, but I don't think it was really necessary. You know, there was a good gag with them trying to go in and save her and she had already escaped, but I feel like most of her subplot until she joined back with the team did kind of feel unnecessary, and then that whole subplot with the coup happening, that felt kind of inconsequential to the rest of the movie, to be honest. But I did really like when so there was like the A team that all died right at the start, and then there was the B team. I liked how the B team took out all of the rebels because they were just thinking that they were enemies. That was really funny. So one thing I really loved was Rick Flag and Peacemaker and Bloodsport as well. All 3 of them, they had like this fun interplay because they're all kind of very similar characters. And then the moral conflict between Peacemaker and Flag having, you know, these 2 separate ideas, you know, it kind of represents this discourse that's happening at the moment about what it means to be patriotic, because some people think you shouldn't criticize your country at all, but then there's others who think it's more patriotic to be able to notice flaws and to criticize, and for Flag to want to release all of that footage, and then Peacemaker, he just wants to keep things as a status quo. And this whole leaking thing reminded me of like Edward Snowden, because some people see Edward Snowden as like this traitor, and then other people see him, you know, you can make the argument that he's so patriotic that he wanted to leak all of this information so the American people know about it, and you'd argue doing that for the greater good is even more patriotic, you know what I mean? So their fight was really good, and I wasn't expecting Flag to die. I knew that a lot of people would die, but I was expecting like TDK to die. I wasn't expecting Captain Boomerang to die right at the start. I think that was a very bold move because he was like an established character, and that just showed us that anyone could. I really liked Polka Dot Man's kind of final moments, but I didn't like how he was taken out almost as a joke right at the end, because he had such this great moment where he like took out a whole leg of Starro and then it just slammed on him. I think maybe they could have had him sacrifice himself or something and had that kind of similar moment where he's like taking it out, but they could have done it kind of similar to how they did classic Loki in the Loki show, how he was like going out laughing and like he kind of embraced death in the end. I think that would have kind of been a little bit better because it did feel a bit too comedic. I did really like King Shark as well. You know, he was very comedic, but they showed how he also is like very dangerous at the same time. And at one point I did think he had died when he had that big fall, but towards the end of the film we saw how strong he actually was. You know, he survived loads, getting hit into buildings, and he could jump really high when he was fighting Starro. So he kind of felt kind of like the equivalent of like a Hulk-like character, because he was like Bloodsport saying like num num, go eat. That was very similar to like a Hulk smash kind of thing. He kind of filled that muscle role really well, and he did that so much better than the crocodile from the first one. I'm forgetting the name. Ratcatcher was great, especially that final scene. I was tearing up even before we got that little flashback of her. You know, we got a bit of her throughout the movie, and then it was just the music that they chose when all of the rats were like running up their legs was so great. And then we got that flashback with Taika Waititi as the dad, because people had heard that he was in it and they were wondering who he would voice. Some people speculated Starro, which would have been good, but him being the dad was great, and that was a great moment of them on the rooftop in her like memory. That whole final battle was really, really great. So yeah, I think that's everything I want to say. So much better than the first. Definitely one of the best from DC so far. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, be sure to leave a like or a comment, especially what you think of this review format, if you'd like to see more reviews. And if you really loved it, be sure to subscribe to keep up to date for any future videos. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.